Okay, guys. So today I'm going to be talking about something that I've been thinking about a bit recently, and with a couple of other things that I've heard about, and I've just decided to make a video on it. But basically, is you need to pay attention to your children, and I'm not just saying that for people, obviously for parents, but for anyone who's got younger brothers and sisters, or nieces and nephews, or just anyone. For example, if there's a child that looks up to them as a kind of older brother or sister figure or anything like that. And obviously with the Netflix cuties thing and with a couple of other issues, you need to pay attention to your children. You need to be careful about what you're letting them watch or what they could be watching when you're not around. And the reason why I say this is uh, about the time of the first lockdown being lifted, so earlier in the year, a 14-year-old boy in the area where I live was actually arrested for having a suicide vest. It was a shrapnel vest, they said. And again, this is about the time the first lockdown was being lifted, so everyone was flooding back into all the shopping centres around. So it doesn't take too much of a stretch of the imagination to figure out where he was going to go. But yeah, and obviously, alhamdulillah, they managed to catch him before he did anything. But the weird thing was his parents had no idea at all. So, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video, because when you just assume that they're up there, on their phone or their computer or whatever it may be, and they're just on Facebook talking to their friends, you need to be careful about what they're watching and who it is that they're talking to, because this child wasn't radicalized by some guy from ISIS who snuck in with a load of economic migrants. He was radicalized over the internet. And that's kind of one of the main points here, is the fact that it is scarily easy to download radical lectures online. It's not hard at all. You don't have to go through like a load of dodgy websites with loads of secret passwords or anything like that at all. It is scarily easy. And kids nowadays, they're smart. They're given iPhones when they're like 4 years old, so they know how to use the internet and they know how to get around parental locks. So you need to be more active in your children's lives, and you need to speak to them about potentially things like this so they know to stay away from them. But another thing is as well is, don't just assume that sending them to the mosque is going to be an answer for that, because it's not. And the reason why I say that is there's a community centre directly in the city where I live, and people use it for Friday prayers. Now, it's, I believe, Bengali majority there. So the khutbahs in like the Friday sermons and everything are all done in Bengali. And as you can probably tell, I don't speak the language. Yeah, I know that's probably a shock to some of you. So it's weird for me to go there and sit through a khutbah or a lecture that I can't understand. And I'm probably going to get a bit far right here, but I personally believe that if you're doing lectures in a country, you should do the lecture in the language of the country that you're in. In the same sense that if I was in Egypt, for example, I wouldn't demand that they do the khutbah in English, because it's not an English-speaking country. And yeah, so, but that's the other thing as well, is, fair enough, let's say, for example, you're from, Bangladesh, and, you've come here, your children were born here. Well, what if they can barely speak the language? They're not going to be able to identify with someone who can't speak English. They're not, regardless of the age difference. Even more so if there's a big age difference there. Because that's why I said just sending them to the mosque isn't going to be enough, because they're not going to be able to identify with some 70-year-old imam who's never had a sip of alcohol in his life. Because growing up in the Western countries, these are things they're going to be exposed to. They're going to be exposed to drinking. They're going to be exposed to dating and, girlfriends and everything. Chances are your children are going to try alcohol. They're going to try cigarettes. They may even try drugs. There's a chance it can happen, because it's throughout society. So, yeah. So just sending them to the mosque isn't going to be good enough. How are they going to be able to talk to an imam who's never had a sip of alcohol in his life about drinking alcohol? Because all that imam is going to tell them is you shouldn't do it because it's haram. Okay, well, why is it haram? Because God says it's haram. Well, in the same sense of when I first became Muslim, that answer isn't going to be good enough. They're going to want more than that. And that's, like I say, with all due respect to all these imams and scholars, if they've never experienced what it's like to be drunk, they're not going to know how to answer that question properly. Which is, without trying to toot my own horn here, you need to send them to people like me, because I, as a person who's lived through those experiences, I'll be able to tell them not only from an Islamic point of view, but from a social point of view as well, about why these things are wrong. And that's, again, is the problem. These children and these teenagers that have these issues and these questions, if they're not getting the help from home, and they're not getting help from the mosque, because for whatever reason, if they can't identify with the people there, they're going to turn to the internet, because they're going to have this insatiable curiosity about these things. And, you know, the internet's going to be the one place that they're potentially going to find answers, but the answers are potentially going to be wrong. Like I say, in the part of that child that was radicalized, like I say, he wasn't radicalized by someone at his mosque. He was radicalized by someone online, and the parents had no idea, because they're just leaving him to his own devices. So that's why you need to be more conscious about what it is your children are watching, who it is they're associating with, and you need to take more of an active interest in their lives. Like I say, don't just send them to the masjid. Don't just send them to the madrasa. Yes, it's important they get an Islamic education, but you need to have one as well. You need to be able to discuss these things with your children. Don't just assume because you pray 5 times a day and then you fast on Ramadan that that's going to be enough. You know, my generation of Muslims, for a lot of my friends, a lot of them are more religious than their parents are. I've seen that a lot. A lot of them are more religious than their parents are, because their parents were, yes, born Muslim, but they weren't necessarily raised Muslim, and they grew up in a country where Islam was the norm, whereas over here, obviously, it's not. Well, obviously, it's normal. You see Muslims everywhere, but, you know, it's not an Islamic country. So they felt the need, obviously, to go to the mosque and make Muslim friends and, you know, get more involved in the religion that way. But yeah, that's the problem. And that's one thing that, you know, I was taught when I first became Muslim, is just because someone seems knowledgeable doesn't mean they actually are. Because, and they warned me about certain things on the internet, because one thing that they were afraid of was that I, as a new Muslim at the time, was going to look online for the answers to certain questions and potentially speak to the wrong sort of people about them. And it would become down a slippery slope from there. So, yeah, guys, that's basically the message for this one, is just take an interest in your kids' lives. Try and relate to your children in the best way that you can. Make sure they're hanging around a good circle of friends, and be honest and open with your children. You know, because I've had Muslims that are older than me ask me this, you know, is it fun going out drinking? Is it fun going out and, you know, partying all night? And the answer to that is yes. Because if it wasn't fun, people wouldn't do it. I'm not saying that to try and guide you down a wrong path. I'm not saying it at all. What you don't see is kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, I may have looked like I had an amazing night over the weekend, you know, back when I drank. What you don't see is me waking up hungover in the morning, trying to remember when I spent £300 last night, because that happened. And I had to try and sift through back a load of half their memories, trying to figure out exactly what I spent all my money on. Because, you know, when you wake up in the morning, you have 300 quid less and you don't remember where it's gone. That scares you. That will still scare me now. So, yeah, that's the thing, guys. Speak to your children, take an interest in their lives, and make sure you know who they're hanging out with. And, you know, and just be honest with your children. They'll respect you for your honesty, and they'll be able to tell you when you're lying. Don't just give them, it's haram because God says so, or because, or, you know, don't do this because I said so. Be honest and open with them about it. They will learn to respect you more because of that. Trust me. But yeah, guys, that's all for today. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, peace.